Okay, and like Sam was saying in the previous webinar, is that if you're not happy with the risk reward of something, or if you don't like the setup, nobody's forcing you to trade. So like anything, if you have a rule-based entry strategy or rule-based exit strategy, you may still know where something is going. I was just saying this to bootcampers yesterday. You may still have it on good authority where something is going and still not be able to take that particular trade. All right? And I think it's important to be comfortable with that, because if you have an entry signal, so to speak, and I've just dropped the air quotes on you there, even though you can't see me, which is silly. Even if you have a rule-based strategy to enter and a rule-based strategy to exit, I'm talking about the actual mechanics of what gets you in the trade, then it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take, if you're in your buy zone or in your sell zone, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take that particular trigger, right, if it's not perfect for yourself. Okay, so you guys know that I'm, for the most part, a price action dude, right? We're not going to get into, guys, we're going to get into a little bit market fractal stuff, kind of use of smaller time frames for larger term trades, etc. But we're not really going to get into why something is long where it's long today and why something is short where it's short. Okay, we can cover that down the road. But anyway, so for the most part, I do entries like this, right? So price is tootling down, yeah? Okay, and then you get your directional change of trend. I'll just wait for HotCom to catch up to me. There we go. All right, and price pulls back to the previous support, aka supply, which is also your fib zone. I like to call them green zones, right? Simplify these things way down. Okay, and then we want to head up. So we'll call this a 15-minute chart for argument's sake. All right, and you are looking to enter a trade here. Okay, we're going to call this a swing fib, considering that it's a fib of one swing. All right, and when you change your trend, when you change your directional trend, you remember an uptrend is defined by higher lows and higher highs. When you change your directional trend, then this one swing, by its very nature, it cannot be a fib of the whole move. It has to be a fib of just the swing. Absolutely, Gangster. Precisely, yes. So if I'm bullish, I'll buy at support in the context of the uptrend. Right? Morning Microforex. Does that make sense? I'm never gonna buy a breakout. I'm never gonna sell a breakout. I'm never gonna buy at resistance or sell at support. Even if it goes a million miles without me, it doesn't make any difference to me whatsoever, because I've lost my edge. My whole thing in trading is that my whole thing. Why is that, Colin? My whole thing with trading is that I'm looking to buy in green zones, and in the context of an uptrend, not sell at a red zone. No, Praveen, and this is what I want to talk about today. All right. So, and in the context of a downtrend, no, I don't try and trade it. I mean, I won't buy. So, in other words, if price is doing something like this, and it breaks out of it, boom, I'm not going to be longing here. I'll just wait for it to catch up. I'm not going to be buying this. Now, if it comes back down here, that's a different story, particularly if it's happening at a major support zone or something. Now, I'll be buying here, sure, but not buying the breakout of the rise. The risk is exponentially larger. I'll sometimes use a limit order, but typically I allow price action to enter me into the trade. No, to answer your question as far as the break of the high. I'm comfortable missing stuff if it doesn't comply to my strategy. Okay, anyway, let's talk about this. All right, let's talk about this scenario. So we're going to call this we're going to call this red box morning bookie is, or evening I should say, is simply the fib of the drop where potentially if it wanted to fail, it could. All right? And, okay, so we're going to call this a swing fib entry. I'm calling it a fib, but really it's a confluence of all sorts of factors. All right? Mostly previous support. It might be a psych level there. It might be a pivot point. I like to stack the odds in my favor before entering a trade. I think that's important. You know, if you're journaling something and it comes down to, all right, entry criteria, and you go, well, I thought it was going to go up, so I just put in a long. Where think about it being different to, well, I bought the 50% fib of a change of trend off a daily 382 level. There was the central pivot there, the 50% a psych level, and previous support. That's easier to substantiate to yourself than saying, well, I thought it was going to go up, so I just bought it. Right? There's a difference there. Okay, so we're going to call this one a swing fib entry, and then price will typically do something like this, right? And then come all the way back down to this same spot, aka the euro today. And then continue to the upside. All right, and a lot of times this swing fib entry on a 15-minute is simply the swing fib entry on an hourly, but because we're looking at this on a 15-minute, it is a move fib entry. And what I mean by that is, it is an entry, it is a buy zone of the entire rise. Okay, so as this was the entry for this rise, okay, this big green zone here is going to be the entry for the entire rise. Okay, this big green zone is the buy zone of this whole thing. Doesn't make any difference. It's a zone for me. The fib on my charts, I barely even draw the fib anymore, Boyke, because it's simply a zone for me, right? So 382 to 618, it's all game. I'll look for confluence within that zone. Make sense? So you know, if your fib's like this, and you've got a 382, 50%, 618. And right around this level, you've also got a previous support zone. All right. And, you know, you might have a pivot point there too. It adds more confluence to that area. So I'm more likely to look for that to be the bar point than anything else. No, just because everything's been pointing up, John. I think you're in the right spot. I just don't think she's ready. So I just think you're early. Hi, Medhat. Okay. Does this make sense? So, you know, I don't see fibs as literal points. I guess that's the. I don't look at it and say, well, I'm only willing to buy the 50%. I don't care it's a 50. I don't care it's a 54.32789%. It's a zone for me, and that's why, you know, that's why I like to use price within the zone to help me define the actual buy